Welcome to the Life Podcast, where life stands for live inspired fully every day. Join our host, world-class speaker, executive coach, and leadership strategist, Anissa Rashad. Each week, as she sits down for an intimate conversation with business executives, influencers, and artists who are at the top of their game to reveal the strategies they use to excel in their respective fields and their personal lives by unpacking their spirit. Each episode is guaranteed to help you lift a load, tackle a problem, gain a new perspective, while having a laugh in the process. Now here's your host, Anissa Rashad.
There's only one word to describe the conversation I just had with Beverly Kuykendall. Epic. Beverly is the president of government business at American Medical Depot, where she oversees expansion into key markets aligned with AMD's long-term plans for growth. Beverly knows how to grow your business, as evidenced by the $1.3 billion medical surgical contract AMD was recently awarded. She was named one of the 50 most powerful minority women in business and Entrepreneur of the Year by the Black Business Association of Los Angeles. She is a passionate swimmer and drops wisdom bombs throughout our conversation. Our time together was truly like dancing with an old friend. So without further ado, let's dive right in. What is life trying to teach you right now?
I think it's just a very interesting question, because it's something that I ask myself through this entire journey. And at this juncture of my life, right? First time grandmother. My children are now adults. They're out of the house. That's a different phase. And so you do start to ask yourself these questions, right? What is life? I know what it's taught me, but I know that there's so much more. And I think it's trying to teach me to really make some decisions and move in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. I've been a student of allowing life to take over, letting go and letting God. It sounds really simple. It sounds very cliche. But I've found a way to just stop and say, what does this situation mean now, for example? We always think that we need to be doing things for other people. And in this case, that was right for me. I had to say, I want to do this for my family. I've made the sacrifice. I told you my mother is calling me this morning. I visit California now versus living in California. And I need to make sure that every decision I've made to move away from my family is one that will make a positive impact on them. That's guided me. There's nothing that said, well, I need to do it this way or that way. It's something I would have never advocated for myself before. I would have allowed the chips to fall where they may. But now at this point in my life, life is saying you need to make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. And so ask for help, which I do. Mm-hmm. I ask for assistance and for guidance. Mm-hmm. And then I force myself to move in a certain direction. And so many times we don't do that, Anissa, because we're afraid. Mm-hmm. So I always think about the definition of courage, and courage is being afraid, but doing it anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway. And so I think that's the most important thing for me right now, really trying to take my time and saying to myself, what is the right decision for me and for the situation?
So you bring up a really good point that I think a lot of our listeners really encounter. It's when you get to a certain point in your career where I call you grown now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I started my career working at NASA. And when I was hired at NASA, I was just excited that NASA hired me, right?
Yes.
So you're just happy to get that first job,
Happy to be at the party.
Right, happy to be at the party. Mm-hmm. Then that first managerial position, you just happy to be in leadership, right?
Oh, they recognize me. Oh, they like me. They really like me. Yes.
I call it, it's a syndrome like they picked me to go to the prom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He
yes.
picked me. Oh,
Yes.
I get to go to the prom with him.
I have to tell that story about picking me too. That's
right?
Story.
And so then you get to a certain point in your life, a certain point in your career where you realize you have the value.
That's
you
right.
are lending your skills, your gifts, your talents
Yes.
to that organization.
Yes.
Right. And so then you start looking at it a little bit differently. What are some of the things that helped you kind of get to that recognition or that understanding that, hey, I have to protect my assets. I've given a lot here. What helped you get to that place?
I know exactly what helped me get there, because it took a while. It's not something that comes overnight. But I think that from a societal perspective, that women, minority women, have been taught, speak when spoken to. You're lucky to be at the party. Serve, 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 serve. And if you even say the word I, that means that you're being selfish. So we must wait for other people to choose us. That gives you a feeling of being unworthy. So you mentioned that before, this somebody picked me. And this is the way I love line dancing. I like the electric slide, the Cupid shuffle. I love all of that. And the reason I like those dances is because you don't have to wait for anybody to pick you.
Yes.
You have full control. I bought the shoes. I bought the dress. I'm getting on the floor and I am dancing.
To the left, to the left, to the left.
And I'm the first one on the floor. I love that because it speaks to my spirit that I don't have to wait for somebody to pick me. So going back to your question, it's the same thing there. If you're not at the table, I call it don't waste the space. If you're in that space, you're in that space for a reason. And if they picked you for a reason, but also it's your responsibility to bring maximum value to the table. So consistently learning, consistently researching, making sure that you're making a contribution. So I've gotten to the point where I understand what my contribution is, and everybody should know what they're good at. There's some things that I am just downright good at. Other people they may not put any value on it. I was watching something, there's a football player. His last name is Herschel, and I watched a special on him this morning. High IQ, mathematics whiz, African American, had an opportunity to play pro ball, because he's also huge, great athlete, and he did that for, I think, 3 seasons. And then he decided, I'm going back to school to get my PhD in math.
Wow.
To get my PhD in math. And I'll give you his name later, right?
Yeah, I'm looking him, I'm writing his name down for my son.
And he talked about being able to really understand what is your value. And here's what I really want to bring to the table. So he's now at MIT, about to get his PhD. He's going to be professor. And people were like, wow, he gave up the NFL? He said, yes, because I wanted something that would give me longevity.
Absolutely.
I have a daughter. I want to be able to make a long-term contribution, not just a short-term contribution. And where others may not have agreed with me and what I wanted to do, I felt this was the right thing to do, was the right decision for me. I know what my gifts are, and so I had to make a decision between and among those gifts, which one I was going to choose to take me from this point forward. So I think that's true of all of us. We really know what they are, and if you wait for somebody to pick you, if you wait for somebody to tell you what your gifts are, you'll never get there.
And so I think that a lot of people, as they get higher inside of organizations, particularly women, even especially women of color, often struggle with this imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? So talk a little bit about what, if someone's out there listening and they just got, promoted to the vice president, I always say, of insignificance, because people place so much value on these titles, right? But they just got this huge promotion, a lot of responsibility, but in their mind, they're like, okay, everybody doesn't know, I really don't deserve this. I really shouldn't be here. They're carrying around that bag of fear, that bag of insecurities, all of that stuff. What would you say to that woman or that man who's in that, maybe landed their first executive role and they're now transitioning to that, spread their wings to that higher level of leadership?
I think that every promotion comes not because of what you already know, that you're going to bring to the table. That's part of it. But the issue is that people expect you to be learning in that new position. And one thing I've learned is very simple. It's perfectly all right to ask questions. You don't have to have all the answers. You could have done some study, and I have that same issue now. But I just have learned something very simple, and it was told to me. Please help me to understand. And then you ask your question. Please help me understand. There's a disconnect between what you're telling me and the answer I'm trying to get. Please help me to understand.
That is a beautiful question.
I've learned that from somebody 10 years younger than me.
It's worth their way. We were just talking about having folks that that love and admire you, that you're their mentor, but you have so much love and respect and admiration and are equally able to learn from them in the process.
Particularly because people have different frames of reference, different levels of experience, different, you just never know. And I believe in the power of diversity. People who have come from a different place than what I've come from. It doesn't have to be better or worse. There's no value on that, but they've had a different experience than I have. And so they can teach you things because they can look at it from a different perspective. And so for me to be able to ask that question in a position that has a title of President of Government Business helped me to understand. The reason that people have the imposter syndrome is because they have this image in their mind that they're supposed to already know.
Absolutely.
And you're learning. So think about when a CEO goes and takes over a new organization. What's the first thing that he or she might do? They gather the departments, they take a tour, they ask questions.
Absolutely.
Because they're trying to understand.
Absolutely.
They're not saying, and they're putting that information within a framework and the experience that they already have to make it work. So it's ask the question is perfectly all right. Please help me to understand.
So tell us about your organization, your role as President of Government Relations.
So the title is President of Government Business, and I say that because government relations is very different.
Right.
So I'm responsible for. I have P&L, profit and loss responsibility for that division of the company, American Medical Depot, and my responsibility is to make sure that segment of the company grows. We have a very aggressive growth rate. So that sounds really simple. You have the salespeople. It's so many more things than that. You have people that are looking to make a contribution to the organization. How do I help them do that so that we can meet our overall growth goals? There are people and their personalities and the organization really is there to feed the people, inspire the people, so that the people can help us to accomplish our goals. And to me, that's really the role of leadership, to be able to recognize that. And of course, you have all the other intricacies, right? You have to understand the finance piece of it. You have to understand the sales piece of it, the marketing piece, and how that all comes together. And so I'm very fortunate because I have someone that I work with very closely. He's the president of the company, have known him for years, great deal of respect. He's 10 years younger than me. Yes. No, he's 12 years younger than me. Oh, I'm sorry, you might hear me. He's 12 years younger than me. His brother is 10 years younger than me. And I've had just a wonderful opportunity to get to work with them. I've known them for years. I shut my company here in California because I had a conversation with them. I came on board, moved, changed my life to be there because I, quite frankly, just believe in them. And I tell people, so they're both Asian Indian. And I tell people all the time, the beauty and the power of diversity. They see things so differently than I do.
Right.
So I allow myself to be fed by that. I take it. I align it with what I already know because what I know is valuable as well.
Absolutely.
And I find a way to develop something or a demeanor or perspective or an approach that uses all of that to bring what's best forward for the company. So it's a very different religion. We look different. We were raised differently. It's a beautiful thing. And so I tell people, be careful about not being inclusive for yourself. Because people really, at the end of the day, and I think it's something that we carry too much of a burden for ourselves, people don't care. What they really want to know is what contribution can you make in order to meet the goal? What does that mean? Bring something different to the table.
When I listen to you, it makes me think about, I taught a class for the London School of Management. This was years ago. And it was the first time I had taught a class where 100% of my participants were international.
I love it.
100%. And they were from all over the world. And let me tell you, everybody came in with their different, traditional garb, their traditional garments from their home areas. And we had our class discussion. We all went to sit and have lunch. And as we're sitting there and we're eating, the one lady says, her husband, when he's on travel for work, she wants him to bring back a gift from the United States. Yeah, well, my husband travels in other countries. I want him to bring me back gifts too. This one talked about how they wanted their kid to have a good quality education. As we went around that table, and I listen to the conversations,
Similarities.
we all want the same things.
Absolutely.
Right? We want the
Absolutely.
same things for our family and for our lives.
Yes.
And I told them, I said, the world, just look at us. Look at us around this table.
Yes.
The world would have us think that we're so different because of the way we show up in our outward packaging.
Yes.
Right? But on the inside, where it matters, we're more alike than we
Yes.
are different.
Well, let me just piggyback from what you just said and talk about an additional value. We all want the same things, but the thing to recognize is that we will all have a different approach.
Absolutely.
And that's what the beautiful thing is.
Absolutely.
How will you get from A to Z? Oh, you would take this path? Interesting. I could take D, E, and F from your path and put it into mine and make it better. It makes it better. And I think what gets us to a place where we're all comfortable is that we all do want the same thing, but they want to be able to approach it from a different perspective. And being able to get to know people well enough to understand what that difference may be that they can bring to your table is a beautiful thing.
So tell me this. I heard you talk about, because you had a very successful company here on the West Coast, right? And so, you popping your collar, you doing your thing, making a couple coins. You made a good life for yourself, right? And so you have this business, and then you're approached by people you've been doing business with for a long
Yes,
time,
yes.
and said, hey, basically, let's take your gifts and your skills and your talents, what we talked about earlier. How about you lend them to this, because we can make something even bigger together. So I want you to walk my guests, my listeners, through the thought process. How do you evaluate an offer? How do you choose between two things that are good? Right?
Yes. I wish I had a really fancy, well-educated, well-respected response. I'm not sure if I do, but I will tell you the truth.
The truth works for me every time.
The truth, because I think it's important for people to know that the scissors don't always cut in a straight line. And so, right, what happened for me is that I've known
That's
them
a
for a long
tweetable,
time.
guys. The scissors. Say it again.
The scissors don't always need to cut in a straight line.
Oh, I love it.
Don't follow the line. Cut color outside the lines. Just cut randomly and see what happens. And I know that doesn't sound very. It makes me think of a quote that the father of my two business partners says. He says, Miss Kuykendall, and I can't do his wonderful rich accent, but he said, hope and prayer are very, very good things, but standing alone, they're not a very good business strategy. They're really important, but you need some other stuff. And so I think about that when I think about your answering this question, which is I had a situation. It was a wonderful company. I loved doing it. I wish my children would have taken it over. It's not something that they wanted to do. There's some failings that I think I had, which was I was the talent. I was able to hire people, had an office in the local area. I really enjoyed doing it. But in order to grow, you have to be able to duplicate yourself. And if you don't do that, if it all has to be about you, if your ego is so big that you're the only one that can do it, that's really going to limit how much you can grow. So that's one piece of it.
Michael Gerber talks about it in the E-Myth, right? The
Yes.
difference between being the pie maker and the person who owns the bakery.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a great analogy for exactly what I'm going to say, because I think that what happened with me, they came, they made me the offer. They wanted me, which is a wonderful thing. They picked me. We just talked about that.
Right.
They knew who I was, and they wanted me anyway. I knew who they were, and I wanted them anyway. And we decided to come together to experience even more growth. And because they knew me so well, they knew what buttons to push to get me there. And so there were some certain buttons that they pushed and said, Beverly, here's what we'd like you to do. And finally, one who, the younger brother who is my friend, he came to me with something very personal, and he said, listen, I need you to come, and here's why I need you to come. And as a result of that, I came. And it was truly a great decision for me. I moved from Southern California, sold them the business, right? And I always say it took me off the street, so now I'm not available to talk to anyone else about federal contracting and teach anyone about federal contracting or represent anybody else to the federal government. I only represent my company now, American Medical Depot, to the federal government. And before, I was able to represent other companies to the government. I can't do that anymore. So it closed me off, and it put me in that particular position. So I think that what my ultimate decision was, because my friend asked me, 2, I really believed in what they were doing at their company. I had come and visited them in Florida. I knew the company very well. I had consulted with them for many, many years. 3, I felt it was time for a change, although since I've left California, some wonderful things have happened. And it was a very difficult decision for me to make. Ultimately, they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse.
Oh, don't you love those
It was a
offers you
wonderful
can't
thing.
refuse?
They made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. That's really what happened.
And so let me talk to you a little bit. I like to kind of ask you a few rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
this is kind of my favorite part. One, I'm just curious about, when's the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh, that's a great question.
I
You
just
know
had that
why?
experience recently, so I
di-
was like, this is the first time I ever did. I went paddleboarding down in Newport Beach with some
Beautiful.
friends, and
Beautiful.
it was just awesome. And, I started, while they were paddleboarding, I started just getting on a kayak, something I know and love.
Yes.
But I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And it was so much fun.
Well, I am so excited to give you my answer to that
Okay.
question because I have always wanted to learn how to swim.
Yes.
In California, we were the only house. I lived on a corner. I've always lived on the corner house. We lived in Ladera Heights. And so we were the only house on that corner that did not have a swimming pool.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want a swimming pool because when I moved into the house, my children I had small children, and I didn't know how to swim, so I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
We moved to Florida. We have a beautiful pool. And I said, this is ridiculous. We have a beautiful pool, and I can't get in. I'm afraid of the water. I hired a personal coach to
Right.
teach me how to swim last
Right.
summer. The first time I'd ever done it. Now I am a swimming mermaid.
Come on
It's
now.
a beautiful thing, right? I'm not going to worry about the hair.
Yes.
I'm not going to worry about, because usually I was watching something recently and it was people at a pool party, but nobody was in the pool. Nobody was in the pool because they said, well, they don't want to get their hair wet, they don't want to get their outfit wet. And now I'm the first one in the pool. I love it.
Look, and you already know the stories about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh,
can't tell you how many pool parties I've gone
Oh,
to,
my
and I'm like,
goodness.
why are all these people who are grown and adults
Yes.
standing in
Yes.
the 3 feet of water,
Yes.
and down here in 6 feet? Right, it's nobody there. You got a rack of people
Yes.
down here in 3 feet of water standing
Yes.
up,
Yes, yes. Mhm.
and nobody standing on the area where it's 6 feet.
And it's ridiculous. And so, well, and I understand it. I was there also, but I wanted to get in the water and have fun, and I didn't want to be afraid. And let me tell you, I listened to a sermon recently of a pastor, and she was talking about how to let go and let God. And she used swimming as an analogy. I've seen so many analogies. You just asked me this question. She said, listen, when you're learning how to swim, you fight the water because you're afraid of the water.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with God. You're fighting. When you really need to just, once you relax and let go and let God, that water will hold you
It will
up.
hold you.
God will hold you up. But you have to trust and have confidence that you're not going to drown. And the only way to have that trust and confidence is that you've learned how to swim, you've learned how to float. You got to learn how to let it go. I am
to
so
let it
proud
go.
of that. So
I
I have
love
to use
it.
that as my example. I learned how to swim, everybody. I learned how to swim.
Absolutely. If you're out there and you haven't learned how to swim, Beverly is challenging you to go and let go and to do that.
I will tell you that. So a woman that I follow I've met her once. Melody Hobson, the president of Ariel Investments.
Uh-huh.
She talks about swimming. She's a fascinating woman. Every speech she makes, every podcast she does, Mellody Hobson. She's married to George Lucas. And so she talks about swimming and the lessons that her coach has taught her about swimming. So she swims with a coach every day. And I thought that is really interesting. And so one day he had her doing these exercises. He had her swimming from one end of her pool to the next, and to hold your breath. You have to be able to hold your breath. That's challenging within itself. It's great exercise, increased lung capacity, and you're learning. When she got out of the pool, she goes, well, why did you have me go through that exercise? He said, I wanted you to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I said, that is a really good lesson. I'm going to learn how to swim, and I'm going to get a swimming coach.
Come on
so
now.
thank you, Melody Hobson.
Come on. So thank you, Melanie Hobson, right? Thank you, Beverly Kuykendall. Because I can swim, but this is how I tell my husband. Like, we have a place in Maine, it's on the lake and everything.
Beautiful.
It's like 100 feet deep. I'm like, I can't go all the way out on that side of the lake.
Yes.
My husband says, Anissa, if you can swim, it doesn't matter how deep the water is.
That's what they tell me. I haven't tested that one yet.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's
Unless I
past
get tired in the middle.
Right. This is what I'm thinking. That's past my comfort level.
Yes.
Right. And so
It's a great challenge.
So
for yourself.
now I'm going to take your challenge.
Yes.
So that is something I'm challenging. Now I'm challenging myself all publicly.
I have a feeling you do that quite often.
Right. So I'm going to take your challenge and I'm going to get myself comfortable swimming in no matter how deep it is.
Yes,
right?
very good.
Okay.
Let's do it together.
So let's do it together. So you hold me accountable for that.
I will ask you.
You hold me accountable for that, okay?
Very
I
good.
want to be held accountable for that. And so now this is the rapid fire part where I unpack your spirit. Oh, it's my favorite. I love. And so I'm just curious, what is your secret sauce to success?
You know, I'm not sure if there is a secret sauce to success. If it is,
And from your perspective.
yeah, just from my perspective. But even if it is, I'm not sure if I don't think I think of it that way. I think that I'm just me. And so one is being afraid and doing it anyway. Two is it's just something within me. I have to make a contribution. I want to make a contribution, and I think that I know that my contribution is very valuable. I think I would love to be able to say, I take my time and I relax sometimes. I'm struggling with
Right.
that work-life balance.
Right.
Even at this point, I love to work. It's my favorite thing to do because I am in a field where I'm doing something that I love. I love federal contracting. Most people don't. I'm a geek. I don't know everything about the federal acquisition regulations. I have lawyers for that. But I love looking at the regulations, understanding what they are, and then understanding how people and companies can make money, giving 100% good quality products and services to the federal government and following their guidelines along the way. I love doing that. And then you have the piece of working with the people as well. So my secret sauce is just really being passionate and really loving what I do. And I'm reluctant to give that answer because it sounds so trite, but it really is the truth. And you can see it in our children. Our children want to have fun first before they do things that they consider are not fun, before they do their homework, before they do their chores. They want to have fun first. For me, government contracting is my fun first, and I'm learning how to balance that. So I think the real answer, the real secret sauce, you really do have to find something that you truly love and are passionate about, that if you didn't make a dime, you would still find a way to do it. You would still study it, you would still think about it, and you would still go for it.
So much came up for me when you were talking. I thought about the book, Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I thought about the Les Brown quote where if you find something you love to do, that you love to do it so much you would do it for free.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And then you learn to do it so well that people pay you to do it.
Yes, become the expert.
Right?
Right? And becoming the expert in something that you love would be easy for you.
Absolutely.
Because you would be studying. When I was learning how to swim, all of a sudden I paid attention to the Olympic swim meets. All of a sudden I paid attention. I looked on YouTube and I looked for people learning how to swim. I learned how to say pool in Spanish, piscina. I think I said that right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm also learning Spanish. But I think that you just naturally want to grow and be within it. And then people start to see you as an expert and they start asking you.
Exactly.
People feed off your passion. So, and I know these are quick fire questions. I want to share one other thing with you.
Yes.
And so this week on Wednesday, I was the keynote speaker for an organization called the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. And I also posted this on my LinkedIn. And there were two other speakers before me. And then I got up to talk and I thought, they're talking from slides. I don't want to talk from slides. I want to really talk to you. I want to have a conversation. So the first thing I typically say to an audience is, all right, listen, let's close the doors, let's shut the windows, and let's have a real conversation. I'm going to tell you what I think you really want to know, because I've already had a conversation with several of you in this room. I've listened to the two previous speakers who were absolutely excellent, but let's have a real conversation.
I love it.
And those real conversations come from passion. I want them to do well. I want them to understand. There's some things that they do not understand, and you can tell because even the right questions are not really coming forward. So I just give a little bit, and I say, just take this small piece, take it from A to B, and then come back and see me, and we'll do C to D the next time that I see you at some point in the future. So I think really being able to speak to an audience from a position of passion, it always will get you a standing ovation, just like with the students. It will get you a standing ovation. People will appreciate it. They really came to be fed and nourished, and if you're a speaker, you better be able to give that to them.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of speaking, you have to be grounded in principles. So it's not just going out, just talking about something. People will call me and say, hey, can you come speak at our Black History program? And I can, but that's not my area of expertise. I am Black.
Right.
I am Black, so I could come. But
and so are they, maybe.
Right. But that's not necessarily why you want me to come talk to your group, right? You want me to come talk about this, right?
Yes.
The things that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, what principles have served you well as a leader?
Humility. Mm-hmm. It truly has. I have a story about that one. That's in my book. But true humility, and really, again, I want to say it really slowly. Finding a way to be of service. Mm-hmm. And people see service and generating revenue and being financially successful as two different things. And I don't think that they are. Mm-hmm. I think you have to feed whatever it is you're involved in. I've got to feed American Medical Depot. Otherwise, there's no value in my being there. Everything that I need to do needs to be working towards growing that company and helping it meet its goals. Right? We got great leadership there, great relationships there, and I think we have everything we need to do that. What part am I going to play to make sure that we meet that goal? So for me, the issue is truly knowing what you have to offer and giving that. And if you feel like you don't have enough, again, we talked about being passionate about something. Right. It's not a finite state. Right. Passion is often fed. You study, you read more, you learn more. For me, there's always new regulations, new ways to apply the law, another way to do this, and another way to increase the business, new opportunities. But you have to read and understand what that is. And so I think that as you're growing in whatever it is your expertise is, that you never stop growing in that arena. Just keep growing and keep giving it.
And so I call it being an expert beginner.
Yes.
Because you can be an expert at a lot of things, as you are. But even when you started swimming, you had to take on a beginner's mind.
Yes,
you had to start as a beginner. And I think sometimes when we have been deemed an expert in whatever our areas of expertise or whatever the world looks at us, we sometimes want to wear that robe and carry it everywhere. I'm the first one to want to give away that Superwoman cape. Please, you can have it. I don't want it. It's heavy. It's heavy.
You talked about what are my principles. I have 3 that I'd like to just sum up based on the conversation that we've just had. One is, and I'll say this at every talk that I give because I think it's very important, return on investment, incremental increase in market share, strategic market advantage. Let me tell you what I mean by each of those. Return on investment. If you want something from someone, or if you're in a situation where you've been promoted, what is the return on the investment that you can give to the company based on the fact that they put their goals and objectives in your hand?
So look, for that person who's wondering why their current manager, their current leader will not give them that promotion, Beverly just told you, you have to be able to demonstrate to them what the return on investment is.
Absolutely.
If I put this new role in your hands, how is the organization going to be better? How are you going to help us meet our objectives?
Yes, and you are investing in me because you're taking some steps backward. You know that there's a learning curve with some of the things that I'm going to be bringing to the table. I need to understand the organization, so I want to make sure that investment is going to be returned to you 3, 4, 5-fold. That's one. The second one is incremental increase in market share. In any environment that you're in, you want to be able to grow the market. Nobody ever says, well, I just want to sell this little bit of bit, right? Even if your market is very small, you want to be able to accrue the most profitability out of that market that you can. So an incremental increase in market share, offer people, this is the amount of growth that I project can happen as a result of the investment that you made in me. So I want to be able to grow that business. So I'm in the medical products distribution business. If I'm distributing a product by a manufacturer, they want us, our organization, to show them how they're going to be able to grow their business. They don't want to just exchange business for business.
Right.
But if you got 30% of the market, how are we going to get you from 30 to 35 or from 35 to 40? That's really what our expertise is, and that's what you need to be bringing to the table. How are you going to help people have an incremental increase so that they are growing one way or another? You can apply that to anything. The third one is strategic market.
Before you go to the third one,
Sure.
I'm just curious, can you give us some examples of, like, basically I just want to show them how amazing you are, right? So, like, what is some of the growth you've been able to help some of your clients achieve? Because we're not talking to just some average business executive. We're not just talking to some average woman. Beverly backs, when she talks about this incremental increase, she backs it up with the numbers and the levels and the types of contracts she's able to garner for their organization.
So I'll give you an example without giving you names of manufacturers, because I think that might be inappropriate.
Absolutely.
But we were dealing with a very large manufacturer of capital equipment. They wanted to do business with the federal government, and they are an excellent company. They've got great reps. They sell to acute care hospitals all over the world, and they do very well. But they recognized that the government was a huge market for them, and they just didn't understand it. When you're selling to the government, there's so many intricacies that are involved. You really need someone who can, their reps could be clinicians, clinician-facing, clinician-oriented. When you go into a regular acute care hospital or a non-government hospital, you go in, the doctor's king, you tell him what you have, he likes what you have, he buys it. The sales cycle is very short compared to the government. The federal government, you can do the same thing, but the doctor has to buy according to regulations, and then he has to talk to the contracting officer. The contracting officer has to either decide whether or not they're going to put that out for bid. There's intricacies there too, and then they have to develop a statement of work, and then they have to solicit, and they have to solicit for a certain period of time, and then they have to solicit compliant with the law, and then they have to evaluate, and then they have to award that contract. So you're not going to get that business today or tomorrow, or maybe not even next year. It takes time. That's the expertise that AMD brings to the table. We can shorten that particular sales cycle. So in that regard, we help them to shortcut their goals and objectives with the federal government, because it may take them 6 years to figure out how to get that done.
Right.
We've already got the expertise. All we need is their clinical expertise, and then we move forward and we help them to realize an incremental increase in market share very fast. And we've done that over and over and over again. We really are the government experts because we understand how to develop procurement vehicles. Whole nother conversation, but understanding the intricacies. So you want to do business with the federal government, and you're already a large business, you already have product acceptability in the medical place, and you need to understand how you're going to do that to the federal government. You can spend your time and your money, and you can research it, and it may take you 10 years, or you can come to American Medical Depot, and we will walk you through that process, and we will walk with you to realize an incremental increase in market share.
And what are some of the results you've got in terms of numbers, in terms of dollars?
So I will tell you that these numbers I can give you because AMD was the prime on the contract. So we are an awardee of a medical surgical prime vendor contract. We service 70 hospitals along the Eastern Seaboard. AMD's portion of that contract was $1.3 billion.
That was $1.3 billion.
Yes. We're very proud of that. I call us a 25-year overnight success because it's something, that the company's been working toward for a very long time and has made lots of sacrifices. AMD was also awarded, this is just before I came on board, a $400 million, what's called an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract.
IDIQ. I started my career at NASA working in procurement.
I love IDIQs. I really do. We were the only small business on that IDIQ. There were 3 contract awardees, AMD and 2 large companies. So you know how task orders are released based on the IDIQ. AMD won the first 17 of those task orders as a small business because we knew what we were doing. We had quality products, quality services. And remember, we're not a manufacturer, we're a distributor. So that means we had to partner with a manufacturer. And that manufacturer also recognized an incremental increase in market share. They had to trust us. We had to go in as partners, and we were the prime, and they were really the sub on the contract. So that was beautiful. A couple of years ago, AMD had an opportunity to service United States Aid for International Development. They had a requirement to help provide products to the Syrian refugees. And so they came to us. They came to Department of Defense and said, look, here's the money. We need to be able to buy it. We need to be able to buy it fast. How can we do it? They said we can do it through American Medical Depot because we have an existing relationship with them. We have existing contracts with them. We could help you to do that quickly. So we did 1,089,000 adult and children hygiene kits to Syria.
Wow.
Within a 3-month period. And we had to source internationally. They did not want domestic United States goods. They wanted goods that came from a foreign company that was providing those goods because they want to have an increase in local market share as well. Why buy from us when you have someone in your own country that makes and can deliver those products? So those are 3 prime examples. Big dollars, lots of opportunity. It's not easy, doesn't come overnight. But again, I give the kudos and accolades I have a great team, But the two gentlemen that I'm in business with are absolutely remarkable. This is remarkable.
When I listen to you, you just remind me, you are a great example of the types of guests we have here on the Life podcast, because we want you to live inspired fully every day. So we bring on guests who are incredible experts in their field, right? So what we promise is a dose of inspiration and some real-time strategies. And so while you're getting that inspiration, do know that these strategies are coming from experts, like who are out there really making a difference. Those examples you just gave, I mean, it did so much. It increased the market share in the local economy in those other countries. It helped the refugees. It helped the company that you were partnering with. Of course, it helped AMD. Win, 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 win.
Absolutely.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. That should be your theme song. All I do is win. And you had one last principle that you wanted to share with us.
Strategic market advantage. And a strategic market advantage says, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, how do I have something that's different? What can I offer that's different that would allow me to have an edge over my competition? And we have to always figure out what that is. But you don't figure out what that is without study. You have to study, understand your market. We know what's already there. I know what my competitors are doing it. If there are already people out there doing it in the marketplace, why would you come out and have a me too? What's going to be your strategic difference that would allow you to grow your business in an arena where there are already so many me too's?
Right.
What makes it different? It could be the way that you decide to sell it to the marketplace. It could be the way the difference in the way you decide to brand it. It could be because you have a special offering that makes it easier for people. But you have to always know what is your strategic market advantage and be able to talk to your potential partners, because nobody does anything alone. And I believe in partnerships and developing and combining your resources with my resources so we can go after something that's bigger. And I say this to entrepreneurs all the time. Everybody wants to do their own thing. Entrepreneurs are typically type A personalities.
Right.
We know everything. We can do it all by ourselves. But the real value is in being able to partner with someone else that will shore up your capabilities, not just give you something, but they add their one to your one and they make it an 11, not a 2. And now you're able to offer something special to the marketplace.
So that brings up a good point that I think a lot of our entrepreneur listeners find themselves in the space of, you have this service that you provide or this product that you deliver, and it's the best of its kind of product, or you're the best in class in terms of your level of service. And oftentimes when they're breaking away from corporate and starting their own thing, they want to make it look like everything else in the marketplace so that they're like credibility, or so that they're legit. So they want to make their thing look like what's already out there.
Yes.
And so what I hear you saying is that's not the right approach. You actually want to show your strategic differences. What other value are you bringing to that space? So talk about that.
I think it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. There may be some companies that say, listen, I just want this little piece of the market. I'm just going to go in and get a little bit. I'm going to lower my price. Right. And so that'll get me some business in the short term, because your competitors, who might be larger, they'll run you right out of business. We've done that before too. Well, they'll run you right out of business because you're going to develop what's called, I call a race to the bottom. So
Race to the bottom.
So that's very short lived, but that's a way, that may be the way that a company wants to approach the market. We're just going to come into the market for a short period of time. We're going to make this level of investment. This is how much money we think we can make, and then we're going to stick and move. We're going to get in and get out. And then you also have companies that say, listen, we really do understand the marketplace. We know that there are so many opportunities for the government. Government has $1 trillion budget. They want to buy medical supplies, all right? So what do we sell as a manufacturer? And is my product like everybody else's? And it might be, but maybe you're branding it differently. Maybe you're selling something to a different marketplace. There's so many different medications that have been developed by pharmaceutical companies that were developed and intended for one purpose, but are now used for another purpose. So that company is realizing incremental increase in market share by having that strategic market advantage. So I say you have to be able to look at what's different about it and be able to explain that to the people. Who's your market? Who are you selling to? What are the demographics of the folks that you're selling to, and why would that be attractive to them? And I just want to say this too. So many times, because many Entrepreneurs are selling B2C, business to consumer. We sell B2B, business to business. But business to consumer very much fits into this conversation because how is yours going to be different? Maybe the people that you're selling to don't have transportation to go out and buy something and bring it back. Maybe the people that you're selling to, maybe they only access their products by calling Uber Eats or by calling a service immediately.
Right.
Or maybe they don't have access to the internet, or maybe they don't know how to use it, so they need somebody to deliver it to them. You need to look at the intricacies of your marketplace and decide how you're going to offer something to them that they need in a way that they're going to buy it. Strategic market advantage.
Oh, I love it. So now I want to ask you about, like I hear you, and I know your schedule is very busy. So I know that in any given month, let's just say the last 30 days, you live in Florida, spend a great deal of time in California. You're in D.C. every week because you're working with your government clients there. You have a new grandbaby, Kai, in California, right? You swim in on a regular basis. You're entertaining and doing things with your husband. Like, this is a very full life that you have. And so I know that there's a lot of joy and you're in flow and that feeds you, but we all get tired. So I'm just curious, where do you go for inspiration? So it's like, who motivates the motivator?
Oh, everybody.
Who charges your battery?
Beautiful. Melody Hobson charges my battery. Anissa Rashad recharges my battery.
Thank
I
you.
mean, really, just being open and listening. There's so many remarkable people out there. And even if remarkable is not even the word for it. Just listening to a different perspective, listening how somebody else does something. They could be in a totally different field than I am, but just listening to that makes a big difference. And I will tell you, my inspiration comes a lot of it underwater. Now that I am swimming.
Look at you.
It is
Look
peaceful
at you.
and quiet.
Trying to get me out there in that water.
Absolutely. I even learned, I just bought 8 swimming caps for thick hair. Swimming caps for thick hair from Amazon Prime.
I'm going to need one of those.
Oh, I should give them to you because I brought 8 and I brought a couple of them with me. And that
I'll be getting that from Beverly before we leave today.
Yes, you will do that. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I have one in my bag. If it's not at this hotel, it's at another hotel. But I said, they have anything you want is there. So there should be no obstacles to anything that you want to do. And I tell people, when you have that yes, but, nothing makes any difference after but.
I'm listening to you, and what I'm just tickled listening, thinking about this. You just talked about having that strategic difference, right? How long have swimming camps been out here?
Exactly.
Forever and a day. But somebody saw, right, a niche in that marketplace and said, we need to make these for some people with thick hair.
And I bought 8 of them.
Right.
Online, all of them just by pushing the button.
Because you already know you're going to bump into people that need that.
That's exactly what I want people to know. I said, wow, they have swimming caps for people with thick, beautiful, natural, curly hair. How about that?
Yes.
And they fit. You don't have to get your hair wet.
I love it. I love it. And so what rituals, what morning routines or things that you do, you talking about swimming, that sounds like that's part of your rituals. But what rituals or morning routines do you practice consistently that contribute to you being able to attain really the level of success that you've reached?
For me, I like being alone in the morning and just not talking to anyone, not having the radio on and just thinking. So part of my ritual is just to spend that time. And recently I've been sitting in a chair in my entry area and just sitting and saying, Beverly, be still. Teaching myself to be still is a great ritual because just like I talked about fighting the water, you fight ideas by not taking the time to just breathe. And I think what helped me is this understanding of I don't have to wait till I have an hour to do it. I don't have to wait till I have half an hour. I can do it in a matter of 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
Stop and just breathe. And again, sounds really simple. I found a massage service that comes to your home on the internet. So that works out really well. There's a place close to where I live that actually massages your feet. And I think that is great. All the nerves that are there.
Absolutely.
So all these things that are available to you that you can say it's okay. If I spend too much time trying to prepare to do it, I won't do it.
Right.
I have to make it a natural part of my life. So 2 minutes to breathe. I have a dear friend that I call in the mornings on my way to work.
Absolutely.
Right. I have about 3 very, very close friends who know everything about me. I can call them and say, all right, here's what I want to talk about now. I got 5 minutes. I got 2 minutes. And just be fed and nourished off of that. I can watch or listen to a podcast. I can listen to NPR. Something for me. I like to think I am really easily inspired. I am not a cynical person. Some people are very cynical. I don't happen to be of that ilk. For me, the glass is always half full. And when you're like that, it's very easy for you to find inspiration and time. So just stopping. Sometimes just walking out of my office. We have a very high-paced environment at American Medical Depot. It's extremely demanding. There are people in and out of the office all day. I try to not successfully keep up with the president of our company, who I think is an absolute genius, and just trying to feed that and making sure that I'm making contributions there. It is very difficult. So just sometimes the simple thing to do is just to stop and do nothing. The trip from Florida to California is about 5 hours. Think about the time I can spend during that 5 hours. Now, when I'm going to D.C., so I'll give you my schedule. On Tuesday, I'm in the office on Monday. On Monday, we have all of our meetings on one day. I have a meeting at...
And this is the office where?
The office in Florida. Office in Florida. So I have a brief meeting at 7:30. I have another meeting at 7:50. I have another meeting at 8:30. I have another meeting at 9 o'clock. Have another meeting at... Then I get a break. Have a meeting at 10. Then I have another meeting at 10:30. Another meeting at 11. And then another meeting at 11:30. That meeting ends about 12:15. Need to do better about eating lunch. And then my afternoon meetings start. We've started three joint ventures, so I meet with our joint venture partners. So I have one meeting that starts at 1:30 to 2:30. Then I have another meeting at 2 o'clock, another one at 3:30, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. That's on Monday. On Monday night...
You thought your schedule was busy. She's just getting started.
It's crazy. It really is crazy. But it goes back to your question, because you have to have time to just breathe and stop. Another thing I do, I have an old Stairmaster in my home. And I don't care what. My husband did not want me to bring it from California to Florida. I brought it. I have it in one of the rooms. I will get on that Stairmaster. It is very difficult, but 30 minutes in the morning, it gives you everything you need. I prefer to swim. It's a little cooler now in Florida, so I've got to get a wetsuit, or we can heat the pool, which we've done a couple of times, which is very expensive to do. But just either getting in the water, finding something time just to spend with yourself. If it's nothing but sitting in the car, just go sit in the car, something like that. But I know there are people that do very exotic, wonderful things. I'm not one of those people. My friends are teaching me.
Yes,
they really are teaching. I'm learning. But just for me to have 5 or 10 minutes to myself is a beautiful thing.
So a few key things you brought up. So one, I have a gift for you. I created something called, and it was just a practice that I did for so many years, and I would share it with people. So then I took the time to write it all up, and the package is called the Morning Jam. And it's like, who wouldn't want to get up in the morning and jam? JAMMN, and it stands for journaling, affirmations, your mental rehearsal, right? Your meditation and movement. And so movement can be doing jumping jacks for 1 minute. You can put it on 60 seconds.
Right.
And the beauty of the Morning Jam, I said, it's a morning routine that you can do wherever you are in whatever amount of time you have. Because you might do it in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. See, that's what I think throws people off. They feel like they have to have 90 minutes in the morning to sit, do it. And to sit in the lotus position. No, you take whatever. We're all busy working professionals. You take what time you have. The result comes from being consistent in the practice. From doing it, right?
Yes, you're right.
That's where you get the result. It's
That's
the consistency.
Exactly right.
Every year I have a principle that I practice. And so the year that I practiced love, I met and married my husband.
Beautiful.
Right? And it wasn't even, I was practicing agape love, where I'm walking down the street intending love to a stranger.
Absolutely.
And seeing what physiological response they have. Like if they start smiling, like a little smile come on their face just because I'm sending them that love energy. Right? So that's what I was thinking. And while I was focused on that, God had something else for me. Yay, right? And so this year, in 2018, the principle that I practice is consistency. I just wanted to be consistent on the things that
That's important.
Discipline, doing the thing you need to do for a long enough period of time until you get the result that you desire.
You just brought up something that was very interesting. Yes, consistency is very important, but I've been married for 36 years. Baby, I mean, missed it by a year or two. I've been married for 36 years, and I think in everything that you brought up in our conversation, I am one of the fortunate ones, meaning that, and again, not cliche, people decide to live differently. I've been married to the same man for 36 years, but I think I chose very carefully, or God chose for me what I really needed. I needed someone who would feed my spirit, and my husband's response to me has always been, baby, I think you can walk on water.
Yes.
Go for it.
Yes.
Do you see who you are? He is always pumping me to the next level. And I love that. I needed that. When I was younger and I was dating, it wasn't that way. There was always somebody trying to carve you into a position that they wanted for themselves. But how do you know that God has not made... He has something special for each of us. And if somebody is trying to get you to move away from that piece, I always say, run. Don't walk, but run. If there's something that you need to do, but somebody that you're dating or that you're with does not want you to do that, doesn't want you to recognize that, and is putting you down because you want that, run. Go away very, very quickly. And I think I've been fortunate in that regard because it takes a very secure man. My husband and I talk about that every day. He's a huge man, Calvin Jones, and he talks about, I know people expect you to be married to this little puny guy and blah, 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 because you have such a strong personality. I said, well, we need to teach the world that it really does take two, and it's a great partnership. For us, it has worked. I also recognize that people have different ways of living, different ways of experiencing things, so there's no one way to find success. That's another thing I want to get across, too. There is no one way. That's why you have multiple guests. Everybody does it differently. That's why we talked about the importance of diversity in thought, diversity in experience, diversity in approach. It's so important to be open to those kinds of things. Just sit and listen and see what part you can adopt for yourself. That, to me, is the key to success, is always pushing yourself, learning, finding peace within yourself. And you talked about agape love. I think loving is part of it as well. I think that every room that we go in and every person that we encounter should be better because you made that encounter in every situation. And people are always watching you. And I always want the experience. Can I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
And so you asked about, we talked about humility early on. And so I remember one time I was on a speaking circuit. I'd been hired by the Women's Business, WeBank. They're a branch of WeBank. Women's Business Executive. Dr. Williamson would kill me because I can't remember. But it's WBEC West. And they hired me to do a speaking tour, and I've been going from state to state, speaking to women's organizations about a new law that was on the books for women-owned small businesses and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. And I was talking to them about how they could use that approach to gain business in the marketplace if they were to get certified. And so I've been traveling for weeks, giving that conversation, and I was exhausted. I go to the airport, and it seems to me, because when you're tired, things appear one way and they may be another, but you're tired. I'm going to talk to myself through that too. But it seemed to me that everybody that I approached, or everybody that I got close to, was bumping into me on purpose because I was tired. When you get tired, you get evil. And I said, the next person that bumps into me, I'm going to bump them back as hard as I can.
I'm ready for
them. So I go to get on the plane, and they call, and I can already see the people coming up, and I'm happen to be sitting in first class, and I'm getting ready to get on the plane, and people are really rushing. And I see a lady out of my periphery, and she's got on a green dress. And I said, I know she's going to bump me. When she bump me, I'm going to bump her back as hard as I can. You should never forget who you are. And so she comes up to me, and she bumps me, and I bump her back as hard as I can, and I act like I don't see her. We get on the plane. We land in California. I'm at baggage claim, and I hardly ever claim bags, and I see somebody. It's a gentleman. He says, Miss Kuykendall, oh my God, I've been following you. You're such a great speaker. You're such a great inspiration. You already know where I'm going. You're such a great motivator. Oh my goodness, where are you coming from? I said, I'm coming from New York, or wherever I was coming from. And he said, my sister's coming from New York. I would love for you to meet her. I said, well, of course, I'm time exhausted, but I'm being Beverly. I'm going to meet her. And so you know she was the woman in the green dress.
Of course she was a woman in the green dress.
That is God's way of saying, be humble. Don't ever forget who you are, what I've sent you out to do. Whatever I've sent you out to do, be consistent in your thought, in your love, in your generosity, because it takes nothing It costs you nothing, and you might even help somebody. So I know that I've learned throughout my life, I just give it up. Okay, Lord, I know I'm tired, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm grouchy, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
I still have to give respect and honor to you by giving it to other people.
Right.
So that has caused me, I never forget that ever, ever, ever again, and I always think somebody's watching me, so I'm very careful.
Exactly. And what happens is, like, I'll be in the line at the credit union, and somebody that I don't know, a perfect stranger, will just come and have the most intimate, in-depth,
Yes.
personal conversation about all this stuff. And I've surrendered that this is what I'm here to do.
Exactly. Or maybe they're trying to give you a message from God. You don't know what the angels
Right.
look like.
And I'm like, I gotta pick up my son. I got this, that. I just stop and listen. I've
Yes.
learned to release,
Yes.
just be fully present.
Yes.
And be used
Yes.
either to receive what they are giving me or to give what I need to give,
Yes.
and then go on and do the next thing.
It's the right thing to do. And in business, it becomes difficult because people will sometimes. I spend a lot of time at my company listening to other people, and I have to learn how to listen. But sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness, and depending on where they're coming from, they will use that against you. And so, I found that when I try to be careful, that just doesn't work. So I just give, and I am so surprised that, rather than me trying to manage it, how things naturally come out where it's a win-win, where that person who's coming from a perspective that is really a position of pain, because they feel like they got to always have these battles, and they're coming from that perspective. For some reason, they're eliminated out of my environment. It just happens. I just continue to be me. I continue to give. I continue to do what I think is the right thing. It's the only thing to do is the right thing, and nobody can talk me out of that. People try to. They try to make you feel ashamed because you're not tough and you're not sticking it to somebody. I just don't believe in that. I believe that there's other ways to get your point across. It's like if you're not very experienced and you want to spank your child because you have no other tools. We've got other tools.
Got other tools.
We've got other tools.
So tell me, when you were talking, you made me think about something that I know comes up often inside an organization, and it's this. When you are the one, so let's just say you're the senior woman, you're the most successful person of color, you're the whatever. When you're the one, oftentimes maybe inside of the organization or all of the other people, all the other women or all of the people of color, they may want to look to you and come to you for advice or for, like, how do I get out of my current situation? And you're a giver, so you want to help, but then, like, your whole time, because you have that P&L responsibility for that, right? And so how do you manage that? Because I have clients who, my executive coaching clients, who are the one, and then they want to help, but then it's this dance that they find themselves inside of. So how do you manage that?
So I have a wonderful woman that works with me. Her name is Gigi Faz. And Gigi and I have come up with a strategy, which is we book time on Fridays, and sometimes it's for the company, it's every other Friday, and that is my time. And the person will get 15 minutes, and they need to know, because I can't just be available all the time. Right? That's not respectful, and we're there to do certain things. And they've got 15 minutes to spend their time with me. Sometimes people don't want to make that investment of booking the time, and so they don't get that opportunity. So I have had to schedule the time to do that. Now, if someone really wanted to spend the time, they could certainly call me and say, let's spend time having lunch. They don't do that. I don't mean during the week. I have no time for lunch during the week, but on the weekend. People can always...
be very clear. Do not start calling me for lunch.
I can't do... I don't need to eat anything else. Maybe now, if you tell me you want to go exercise and swim, we can do that, because I'm working on that right now. But I think that you have to have scheduled time, because if people don't respect your time, they have to respect your time. If they don't, how are they going to respect the advice that you're giving to them?
Absolutely.
And I don't want to hear the same thing over and over and over and over again. And most people really do have the answer. It's just a matter of, help me to understand.
Right.
And that's the question that I'll ask them as well.
Give them a little different perspective, another approach.
Yes. And I've seen I've seen other successful executives. They give in different ways to different organizations. I do speaking to organizations on behalf of AMD, and I make sure I put that little piece in there for people so that I'm feeding people at the same time. But I think that You can join an organization. That's a way of giving back. They can find you there. You can be on the speaking circuit. That's another way of doing it. You can set up time once a month or every Friday or however you want to do it. You can carve out that time and spend, but it has to be scheduled. For me, a scheduled protocol works.
I always say I can do anything with the plan.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If I tell my son, the first person who has to understand that principle, when he was in kindergarten, he wanted me to like take something that morning to school. Oh no, life don't work like that.
Yes.
Mommy can't do that.
Right.
He's like, what? You can't take the carrots to my kindergarten class? No, our life doesn't work that way. Now, if you tell me on the weekend, we can go to Costco, we can make it happen.
Yes.
And guess what? To this moment, he tells me on the weekend when he needs things for school for the next week, because he's not waking up the morning of. Our life don't work like that.
And isn't that a great life lesson too?
It's a great life lesson.
Develop a project plan.
Absolutely. And so we've been unpacking your spirit. So we looked at your secret sauce. We looked at principles around leadership, where you go for inspiration, your morning rituals or routines. Now I want to know from you, what are you doing now to reinvent yourself?
That's a very good question. All your questions are very good. Right now, we have a new opportunity within our organization. And I just learned about it this weekend, and that's giving me an opportunity. We've got some new funding, and so it gives me an opportunity to really refocus. And so I like that because I really would like to unpack the sales piece and the increase in market share. And people say, but that's still business. That is really what I do. That's what I love. Swimming. I have some events that I'm going to be attending next year. I have a project plan. I'd love to lose about 50 pounds, so I'm working on that as well. And because I think it's necessary to be healthy, and you cannot be healthy if you're carrying too much weight, and weight comes from stress, and weight comes from really not taking good care of ourselves. And so I'm looking to get back to where I was about a few years ago. I want that comfort in that space. I want to be at my fighting weight, as my husband calls it. I want to be at my fighting weight. And so that's a piece of it. That's a way to really invest in yourself, not to stress over it. I have a very specific plan that I've followed in the past, and I want to get back to that plan as well. So I'm reinventing myself. I'd love to do more speaking and writing, but I've got to carve out the time for that. My passion. You put me on a stage and let me talk. Now, put me on television with a television camera, can't do it. But put me in front of a live audience, and I get an opportunity to interact. I mean, really interact and feed off of their energy, and I'm able to give them what they want. I love doing that. If I can do that, and you brought up something earlier, you can do that if I'm speaking about something that's relevant to them. If it's something that they need. So many people say, I just want to be a public speaker. That's not what I want. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be able to deliver a message, and coming from things that I already know. I love federal procurement. I love entrepreneurship. I love building a business. I love business development. I want to talk about that for new business owners. Something really concrete. It's not about just getting up there and talking. I love that piece of it, but only if I can deliver a message that's relevant to the people that I'm talking to. Only if I can feed them.
Absolutely. Love that. And tools. Give me 3. So the last T is tools. Give me 3 tools that you use to help you stay on top of your game. Now, this could be an app. This could be some type of grocery delivery service. But 3 tools that you use to help you stay on top of your game.
Well, one is that I love new information, federal procurement. So I attend specific conferences and workshops that give me information like that. I attended 2 webinars on the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Program and some of the new legislation that came out and new regulations that came out just recently under the SBA. There's been some changes in that. I love to look at the changes and see how those might impact us. So I feed myself because I'm always learning. There is no finite position to be in ever. You can't just say, I'm going to do this and I know everything I don't know. You must always be recreating yourself, even a different delivery method, bringing in new information, garnering relationships with new people. You asked me what I'm doing differently. I'm really trying. I had roommates. I went to Cal Poly University. I had roommates during my undergrad, and I still know those women. We have a great relationship. So they're teaching me too how to vacation. So they'll invite me because the last thing I want to do is get on another airplane and pack a bag.
So people don't realize that when you do it so much for work,
if
you're going to some dinner, that's not fun. I mean, this is what I'll say. So, like, these are not my friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, I like them,
Yes.
but they're not my, because if I was choosing with my time, I would be with my best friend from high school.
Yes.
I'd be with my
Yes.
college roommate.
Yes.
Right? And so it looks glamorous and it looks like fun, but it's work.
It's work. You don't
It's
want to do
work.
that. And pack another bag, and what am I going to wear? And then go to the airport, stand at customs, come through the custom line. For me, that's not fun. For other people, it is. And not only that, how long does it take you when you decide you're going on a trip to really, really relax?
Absolutely.
That's not what I want to do.
I tell my
relax.
college roommate first 2
Yeah.
days, look, I hope you don't talk about work this much at
Yeah.
home with your husband, because I'm gonna tell you, he don't want to hear this.
Oh my
right?
goodness. Isn't that the truth?
I don't want to hear it.
Yes.
Right. I'm gonna indulge you in about 30 minutes.
Right.
I'm gonna need
That's
you
it.
to shut that down.
Turn that off.
I'm
Let's
gonna need
figure-
you to shut that down.
And we have to learn. You need people to tell you that,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to learn new ways of doing it. If it's nothing but, I put together a Walgreens picture book for Kai,
Uh-huh.
and it took me forever to do it. I'd never done it before. It doesn't look that great, but it took my mind completely off of work. I sat there, I had to pick the photos, had to figure out how the app worked.
Put the little quotes in there and
Didn't do the quotes because I couldn't figure that piece out, but I'll do it next time.
Shutterfly is easy
Yeah.
to do that too.
I got to figure that piece out. So I'm learning, right? Those are new things to learn. So Kai, my new grandson, is probably going to be my best answer to all of your questions about, how do I impact something. It's very, very different. And I think that I am not there yet. And the things that I've heard that other people do sounds great, but I don't want to go on another trip. I don't want to go on a cruise. It's just not my thing. Now, do I want to go outside in my own backyard because I travel so much and swim? Absolutely. Do I want to enjoy my home? Yes, not alone. I keep trying to get my friends from California to, you guys better come on.
That's right.
Come on out and visit. I might even take a couple of days off work if you come. So I just want to relax with people. I love games. I love what my friend Terry Williams Smith calls parlor games. So I don't mean an app game. I don't mean a computer. So I bought a giant Connect 4.
Oh, love it.
Giant size, right? It stands maybe about 5 feet tall. And Giant Connect 4. I bought Django, a giant Django book. I bought a giant Scrabble board. Things that will allow people to interact with each other. I don't want to sit next to you with an app and you have your app and we're working on it.
Right.
Those kinds of things I really enjoy. I like word games, word puzzles, but I bring other people into it. And I can see them rolling their eyes. I don't want to do that, it's so boring. Get children involved. They will start enjoying it right away.
So you're talking about games. I am the queen of games. So because I, facilitate experiences for executives and leaders, I create those types of things whenever I have games for the folks at the house. So I will create a new game. Right.
Really?
Just for Thanksgiving, me, my sister, she's my sibling cousin. She's like my sister, but she's really my cousin. We all cooked dinner for all of my father's siblings. My father's deceased, so all of our aunts and uncles and cousins and kids, we cooked dinner for them on the East Coast. And I sat all of my father's siblings down, and I called it Harrington. That's my maiden name, Harrington Tales, right? I asked them questions about their growing up, about what it was like to be in the house, what was the general mood of the house. You know how way back when, like sometimes the girls were treated differently than the boys.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes, okay.
Right, sometimes. And so I asked my aunt, well, did you notice a difference between, say, her and my dad, like a year or two in age? Did you notice a difference in how, you were treated and how he was treated? And she did.
Of course
She's
did.
like, her mom would always make sure, because boys have to have money. So she would make sure my dad have money. And so all of these, it was, my sister said, honey, that was like a group therapy session for them. She's like, I think that was like a
That
group.
is great,
It was
though.
so powerful, so
Yes.
beautiful. And then we had like my children, because all the next two
listening.
generations listening,
Yes.
they learned things about their family that they didn't know.
Yes.
We learned things that we didn't know. And then the grandchildren, the great-grand, they all learned things that they didn't know. Isn't that interesting?
I think
Because
it's interesting.
it's a different perspective that each one had. Like, my son has never met my grandmother. So I knew her in a way because
So he's
I used to go
listening.
over her house every weekend. But
Yes.
she was dead before he was ever born.
Yes.
And so it's helping preserve that family history. As an example, that's just one of the games I created.
That is beautiful.
Harrington Tales.
Well, that brings up another topic, which I think history and legacy is very important for our children to hear and to find a way to perpetuate that in that way. How often do people really today sit and have a conversation and have a conversation where you are saying, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to force myself not to express an opinion one way or another. I'm going to give information that says, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Tell me more.
Just, you're asking me, tell me more about that. What do you think? You said this, and let people know that you're listening to them. I think that is so valuable, and we've gotten away from it. I challenge all of us during the holidays, all of us, to be the one that develops that kind of a game or that kind of an environment so that families can really sit and talk. I believe that will save our children. Because
Absolutely.
if they don't know who they are, they don't understand the responsibility that they have because of the sacrifices that have been made for them, they'll be lost. It won't give them a sense of purpose. They need that purpose. When I spoke to the historically black colleges and universities, they have a career development marketplace that's developed by a gentleman by the name of Tarek Shane, T-A-R-I-Q, Shane. And Tarek has been doing this for 11 years or even more with his family, where he goes out and he recruits students from all the HBCUs. He brings them into an environment. He invites companies like Northrop Grumman and Boeing and American Medical Depot to come out because he's looking for internships and also places for these children to work after they graduate. So that's where those 300 students come from. And when you have that, those children talk to me about why they went to an HBCU, and most of the time it was because they had been talking to their parents and their grandmother and somebody else and somebody else and somebody, and they had a conversation about it. I never knew what an HBCU was when I was here in Southern California. They're mainly on the East Coast and in the South. So we didn't know anything about that. I had no idea that there was an environment where you could go to school as an African American and somebody wouldn't be trying to tell you, as they did me every day, you don't really belong here, especially when I went, right? You don't really belong. You shouldn't be. And it wasn't a nurturing environment. So think about how well we can do in the world if we come from a nurturing environment, all starting from home, from those conversations. I'm not saying HBCU is for everyone, but I think they have a very magnificent place and space and time for all of us. And I see the students that come out of them, the self-confidence is off the chain.
So I'll tell you personal example. My daughter, so my husband and I are both alumni of HBCUs.
I didn't know that.
So we're both alumni of HBCUs. My daughter is a freshman at Hampton University.
Oh, very good.
And so she had a 4.3 GPA, just a remarkable young lady. And so in high school, she's in school to be an engineer. So my husband was looking at Columbia University, which she can absolutely compete.
Yes.
And I wanted her to be in an HBCU environment from the perspective, the nurturing piece.
Yes.
Because
she's competing there also.
Right.
Yes.
She's absolutely competing. She's very much, she's introverted. She's an engineer. Like she's going to school to be a chemical engineer, and my husband's an engineer. She was raised that way, right?
Yes.
And so I wanted her to be where she can compete on her academics. But I told her if she was on this podcast right now, she would tell you the number one thing I told her I wanted her to get when she went to college was an Auntie Audria.
Absolutely.
That's my college roommate.
Got it. Exactly.
I want you to get one of those.
Exactly. That's what you
need that to be your ride or die for the next 30 years.
When
births and deaths
very
and
important.
all of these things, you need to have that person. So I wanted her to develop those quality relationships in addition to getting that degree.
I was recently listening to NPR, and they were talking about the whole college university situation now, and that students go to such big schools and sometimes they get lost, right? Because they're going to a prominent university. Their parents have been pushing them and they think that's the right thing to do. It may not be the right place for them. And I just think nurturing is such an important part of it. And it's good if you have a child that's independent, that doesn't need it, they got everything they need, but they're only 17 or 18 or 19 years old when they're leaving home.
That's right.
You really want them to have the most positive experience possible, and you want people who look at them as if the glass is half full. Yeah, they're going to need to get a kick in the butt every now and then, but they need somebody who believes in them. If they know that you are chastising them or giving them that kick because you have high expectations for them, that they're not following, that's very different than somebody saying, well, you know what, just give up. You really weren't supposed to do this anyway. Exactly.
Oh, I love it. And I can't say enough positive things about Hampton University. It is
beautiful.
What a beautiful, perfect place, like a cocoon to learn and grow and to go to transition to that next level in your life.
It's a beautiful thing.
You know, the school by the sea.
Yes.
So like literally her dorm room overlooks the Atlantic Ocean.
So
how
wonderful.
Beautiful is that?
Can I tell you how wonderful those students were at the career development marketplace? Just confident, cocky, even,
Yes,
which is
that's
fine.
right,
They have
right.
full permission to be cocky.
Absolutely.
And because they're accomplishing something. Many of them, they were first-time graduate from their families. A lot of the students came from different kind of family. A lot of them had been many students that I spoke to had been adopted. And so they were looking for this as an African-American experience for themselves. Very interesting. I met a student who was Asian, born and raised in Honduras, going to an HBCU.
Wow.
And she said, this is my second year, and I've really stuck it out, and blah, blah, blah. I look different. I said, let me tell you something. This is such a rich experience for you.
Right.
I applaud you for trying something completely different, and you're doing very well. She's getting ready to graduate, and she's in her second year. So she has a couple of more years, and then she's going to go on and get her master's. I said, it's a beautiful thing. Who would put themselves in an environment, totally different environment? Actually, African Americans do it every day,
right.
But in a totally different environment where there's nobody else that looks like you because they want this experience. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh, I love it. This is the last question.
All right.
What's the one thing that you recommend to our Life podcast listeners to help them live inspired fully every day?
Shake it off and do it anyway. Don't second guess yourself. You say one thing, all of this is the same thing.
Right.
I'm just defining it, but it's shake it off and do it anyway. If you are in a room and there are many people sitting around and you are the only one, even if you're not, your responsibility is to make a contribution in that room. And if that means you study it before you get there and you have your questions ready, which is really what we do all the time, American Medical Depot, that's what we do. We've been taught that. Then that's what you need to do. But make sure that you are asking a question. And I always tell people, stand up. My name is Beverly Kuykendall. I'm representing American Medical Depot. We have one of the largest prime vendor contracts that was recently awarded by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Here's my question. Let them know who you are. Represent. Let people see you.
Absolutely.
You're there for them to see you. You're not there to blend into the background. And also, when you go to a conference or a meeting, if you go with somebody, divide and conquer. Don't sit there
Absolutely.
and just talk and meet with that person. You go on one side of the room, that person goes on the other. You guys compare notes at the end and see how much more rich you'll come out of that environment. All right, I can talk to you forever. I thank you.
Oh, I thank you. I am Anissa Rashad. This has been another episode of the Life Podcast. We have been greatly enriched, greatly blessed this day with a conversation with Beverly Kuykendall. As always, we thank you for taking the time to listen to the Life, Live Inspired Fully Every Day podcast. If you enjoyed the show, by all means, subscribe. While you're at it, do your friends, colleagues, and family a favor and share. There are thousands of podcasts available in iTunes, so help others to make the same choice you did by leaving a review. We love to hear from you, so leave us a question and maybe we'll select your question to answer on our next episode. The show notes that list all of the books, tweetables, and companies we referenced are all available at lifebyAnissa.com. Until next week, I am Anissa Rashad, executive coach and leadership strategist, challenging you to live inspired fully every day.